How you doing? My name's Tim Osprey. I operate Osprey Crafts here in Sangerville, Maine. I make canoe accessories, some fishing accessories, and I specialize in accessories for Scott canoes. So I've had a couple of folks ask me over my website whether I could perhaps put some material together on the accessories I've made or the modifications I've made to my Scott canoe. So that they can learn a little bit about that. And so I'm going to make a short video here. It's probably the easiest way to do it instead of try to type something up and show a bunch of pictures and explain it. I'm just going to make a video that steps you through some of the things I've done, some of the things that I sell that may help you out, but even stuff that I've just done to the canoe that you might find useful for your Scott canoe. So before I get started, I just want to say a little bit about my boat here. You're going to see it's not a work of art. I didn't pick this boat when I bought a new boat about 12 years ago. I didn't pick this one because it was the prettiest boat. I picked function over form. I wanted a boat that was rugged, that would suit my needs, both as trolling on lakes as well as fly casting. I also do some river fishing. And the Scott canoe really fits that bill. I love this Hudson Bay Scott canoe for fishing. It's not the prettiest thing. I roughed it up a little bit. I like the idea that I don't have a lot of maintenance to do on this boat every year. I've got a lot of friends that have Grand Lakers, and they are beautiful wooden boats, and they are a joy to fish out of. There's something special about fishing out of a wooden boat. And I've made some wooden boats earlier on when I got into boat building, but I wanted something that I could not worry about and that would suit all of my needs. Like I said, this boat, the Scott canoe, will take the rough water in a big lake. I've also used it in the rivers, and I use it for fly casting as well as trolling. So I'm going to just step you through some of the modifications that I've made to sort of enhance that fishing experience. First thing I made when I bought my Scott canoe was this casting deck, and it was important for me to have a place where I could stand. Also, at the time my son was about 12 and he was just coming into his own in terms of fly casting. I wanted a place to make sure he had maximum success. So I built this platform up in the front, and just for that purpose. I'm actually going to make a second video on how you make one of these. I've made a few for people who have had the opportunity to leave their canoes here with me for a couple days. But if you're in another part of the state or out of state, you may want to just build one of these for yourself, and probably I'm not going to be able to do it for you. So I'm going to just make another video to show you how to do that. But some of the advantages to this: not only can you stand up there and cast and just shoot your fly line, but it makes a great place for storage. And I'm going to just kind of zoom down in here. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but I've got my gas can stored underneath there. My gas tank is stored underneath there. And along with some bumpers, I've got spare rope. I've got my toolbox. I've got a couple of spare tires under there. So it really saves some storage space, or creates storage space for you in your canoe. And you don't have to have all that stuff underneath your feet, especially if you're fly casting, like I mentioned that I like to do. A lot of times I'll stand on the stern seat, and you don't want to have a gas tank under your feet to catch your line. So this is a great place for it. And you can see, here's my gas line right here in this PVC. And what I do is I've cut a hole in my floor, my casting deck, to shoot that down through to the tank. And then I keep it in this PVC and run it all along the side of the canoe to keep it out of the way. And it runs right to the back of the canoe, and I've got it attached right up under the gunnel with a zip strip. And then it goes down into the back where the motor would be. Normally, I have the motor off right now because it's sitting in my yard, but it attaches right to the motor, so it's a nice clean system. It takes a little while to get it started first thing in the year. You got to pump that bulb a little bit, but after that, it runs like a top. Okay, so while I'm talking about the gas line, you can see I've actually got 3 PVC pipes running along the side, and I make these little ash holders right here, rod holders is really what they were made for. Run the PVC through, and you can see back here I've got my fly rod tucked in. It's a 9-foot fly rod, fits comfortably in there. Keeps them out of the way when you're traveling. I can fit 2 in on this side. Now I've also got a couple of those set up on the other side, on the right hand side, but I'll tell you it's a little tight if you're in the front of the boat. I put them there for I was going to put some PVC in there for the front fishermen, but it's a little tight with that deck in there to get your rod in, so I've just left the bottom 2 holes open, and that's where I store my trolling rod when I'm underway. You can see that's sitting there, and on the top I've actually got another piece of 1-inch PVC that I run my anchor line down through. This is my anchor system for the Scott Canoe. And I remember one of the first trips I had on my Scott Canoe, I was going down the west branch of the Penobscot on the section known as the Foxhole, which is about a 10-mile trip downriver. And it's a section of the Penobscot in between Chesuncook Lake and Sabumic Lake. And so you travel down there. It's heavy water. There's probably 1,000 CFS or more coming down in a river that's probably 200, maybe 300 feet across. And I had one of these store-bought anchor systems at the time. It was really made for like an old town canoe. And I remember it had just 1 set of brackets, like similar to this right here with 1 set of brackets. And what happened was I didn't have my anchor off the back, just off the bow, and I was casting around, and I remember the back end of the boat slid off to the side, just enough so that the front end actually caught some water, and it just ripped that thing right off the front of my boat. It was tied in the back, so it didn't go anywhere, but I was able, it was not the ideal situation, so I decided I was going to make something a little more rugged. So what I've got here is a solid ash 2x4 that's just over 30 inches, and I've got this Greenfield mount. These are a little hard to find, but they are rugged. They are not going to break. And what I do that's a little different about mine is they actually are bolted right through the board. A lot of the pulley systems that you find on the commercial models that you'll find into hardware at your sporting goods store just have screws down through the top, not through bolted. So this thing is really rugged. I'm going to try to get a better look at it from up here. And you can see that pulley system. And I've got 7/16 inch rope through this one. The instructions say use 1/2 inch, but I found 1/2 inch was actually too big, and 3/8 was too small. It would slip with 3/8 under a heavy load. So this is what mine looks like. And as I mentioned with the older version, with the version I had that I bought at the store, it had just this 1 set of braces, and as you can see here, there's actually a plate underneath there, and I'll put a picture in here of all the parts you get. But that plate makes sure that nothing goes side to side with this anchor system. So that thing is in there. It's rugged. I've got a 20-pound anchor on the front, and there's no problem with that at all. There's no bend in that solid 2x4 ash anchor system at all. Now, a couple things I did a little bit different. When you buy one of these from me, you get just the ash 2x4 with the mounting system and the pulley. It's all ready to go. But I added this eye bolt right here so that I can run my line to the back through that. Some guys might want that. If you've got a guy working on the bow, working out of the bow and running your line, you probably don't need that. The other thing is I added a light here, and I just ran the wires back to these little bolts right here, and then I run them down right through along the bottom of the gunnel right to the back of the boat where I store my battery. And I installed actually a switch back there underneath my seat so I can flick my lights on and off as I need to from back there. So I think that's about it. I do run like I said, I do run the line down through a 1-inch PVC, and I have a cleat mounted on this back thwart right here that I attach to. I've also tied it right off on the thwart. That's just as handy sometimes. works just fine. So you can buy one of these cleats. I bought this one, I think, at Hamilton Marine for like $5 or something like that. Pretty cheap. And just mounted it right there. I did buy a, this is actually like a canvas water bag I had Hamilton Marine to store my rope in, so that I didn't have that under my feet as well. Because when I'm down on a river situation, sometimes I like to park at the head of the pool and then anchor and just fish for a while off the back of the boat, and then release some line, drop another 20, 30 yards and fish again. So I like to have a long rope, but I like to have it stored somewhere out from under my feet. So that's a good way to keep your anchor line out from underneath your feet. As I mentioned earlier, I like to do a lot of trolling too, both for brook trout and togue, and salmon once in a while. So when I use my Scott Canoe, I have an 8-horse on the back end, and I put on this electric trolling motor mount as well, and I can put that right on there and it fits fine with the motor. I can have both of them on at the same time, and I just put my trolling motor on there, and at the end you can see I've got a spot to mount my Canon downrigger as well. So this is the 6-inch version. I also have a 4-inch version. If you're not into downriggers and you just want a more slender, lighter model, the 4-inch will do you just fine. But that is really handy to have when you like to slow troll for trout especially. And I don't use it for bass fishing too much, but I would think it'd be pretty handy for the bass fishermen as well. One other thing I did a few years ago was to open up this back seat a little bit. Like I said, I don't like to have stuff under my feet when I'm casting, and there's nothing worse than a gas tank or a trolling motor battery to catch your fly line when you're trying to reach that fish. So I just opened that hole up big enough right there to slide a trolling motor battery in there. There's some flotation in there. You can just push it up to the sides. I took a little bit out. Didn't seem to be a big issue. And so now my trolling motor battery will fit right in there. Of course, I've got a cup holder there, but I've also, as I mentioned earlier, I've got my wires for my light that come down through the seat right here. After they go pass along the gunnel, they go through the seat, and I've got another hole there that I run my power switch for my fish finder, which is mounted on my fort right in front of me. So all that electrical stuff is right under there, and you can't see it, but I've got a little on-off switch underneath the back of that seat to turn the lights on and off in the front. I just want to take a minute and sort of step you through each one of these products that I make in case anybody's interested in adding them for their Scott Canoe. As far as the anchor system, as I mentioned, you get the Greenfield mount, and it's all put together when you get it. This one I'm still working on. I ran out of ones that were all completed there the other day when I had an order, so I'm putting this one together. But you get the Greenfield mount and the 2x4, the bolts with some really high quality plastic knobs. You get the back braces, and then you get the front triangular piece that will keep that anchor system from swinging from side to side. As I said, this stuff is made from solid ash. It's all handmade. I make every single one of them. So I get to pick over the wood to make sure there's no defects in it. It's coated 100% in West Systems epoxy, which I used when I first started doing some boat building. I found that stuff was just incredible in terms of protection and being rugged. I once dropped an axe on a cedar boat that I was building, and it luckily had been coated with that West Systems, and it never even made a scratch in the thing. So I use that on all my stuff that's going to be outside a lot for protection. You can put a couple of coats of varnish over it if you like, but it should hold up pretty well. It's rugged stuff. One thing I did want to point out with these Greenfield pulleys, you've got this system right here where you've got a little spring in there and this lever, so that when you're working your rope, you can work it from the back and let a little bit of line out at a time. And if you let that line go slack, that little lever will spring down and hold on to the line. Some guys use that. I don't like it. So I've detached the spring on mine, and even in a lot of times I just run the line through the pulley but underneath that little lever, so that it's just a direct line to the back of my boat, and I just run it through my cam cleat back there. You can do it either way, whatever suits your needs, but I always had a hard time working that line sometimes when I wanted to pull it up or wanted it to hold. So that's the way I've gone with that. Now, I've also got the motor mount. This is the 4-inch version that I was talking about. It's got 1/2-inch carriage bolts, and again, it's got the real rugged knobs underneath. So you basically just wedge your gunnel, sandwich your gunnel right in there and clamp that down, and it's a pretty rugged hold. And again, that is coated with West Systems. I only have had a trolling motor on it. I don't know if you could get away with something heavier on it, but it's certainly suitable for a trolling motor. And again, solid ash, good quality ash. Shouldn't let you down ever. One of the other things I throw in my boat a lot is my measuring board. There's a lot of length limits out there, no matter what you're fishing for, and you want to keep it legal. I've got these solid ash fish measurement boards that are in metric as well as English, so I market these not only to fishermen but to scientists that use them. And this is my 36-inch version. So it folds out. It's got a hinge there, and it's great for freshwater fishing for the most part, for salmon, trout, or toad. I also make a 48-inch version, which is great for stripers, or if you're a pike fisherman, you might want something a little bit bigger. These are awesome to have in the boat, and I sell a lot of them to ice fishermen as well. I like to have them in the shacks. And this is got an aluminum, it's got the aluminum ruler, and the face of it is covered with West Systems epoxy, so that should last forever. And it's also got varnish on the outsides, which don't see as much abuse as flopping a bunch of fish in there would. So, if you have any interest in this, you can check out my website for the current prices. Let me know if you need something special. I can make something special for you. I've done that a number of times. Good luck.